Last week we talked about the best. This week we talk about the worst. And on today's video, we're talking the top 5 worst Andre the Giant figures of all time.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another Andre the Giant countdown video. But today we're doing something entirely different as we're counting down my 5 least favorite Andre the Giant figures of all time. And of course, every Thursday right here on this channel, we do a countdown of some sorts, usually a top 5, but on subscriber milestones, we do hit a top 10 video. But this week, like I said, we're doing the top 5 worst Andre the Giant figures of all time. And Andre, a very simple guy to get in figure form, but also a very difficult guy to get in figure form. Not a lot of flash, not a lot of color to him, but always some issues with the outfit he wears, and it's a very simple singlet most of the time. Always some issues there, and then the head sculpts. Sometimes there's some head sculpts that go awry on us, and we just have some issues. So there's been some great Andre the Giant figures, as I did show in the top 10 video. Make sure you check out that one from last week, depending when you're watching this, as that broke down the top 10 best. But today, well, like I said, we're going to talk about the top 5 worst Andre the Giant figures of all time. And now I'm going to ask you guys, get your list together. You got to get the pen and paper out. Go through it. If you got your 10 best last week, get your 5 least favorite this week. So without further ado, let's start it off at number 5. We begin the Andre the Giant top 5 worst figures of all time as voted by me. And like I always say, remember, this is my list. Put your list in the comments down below. But this time, we go to LJN. We saw 2 LJNs in my top 10 favorite. Well, now the other LJN, the odd man out, we'll call him, comes in at number 5 on my least favorite. And it is the short-haired Andre the Giant, good guy Andre in the blue trunks. Now, I talk about nostalgia. That's a big part of the countdown video here. And the 2 that were in my top 10, I did have as a kid. I did play with those. This one, I actually didn't even know existed until, the internet came around or whatever. I just didn't know as a kid this version of Andre existed. I always saw the long-haired one. That's the one my friends had. That's one everybody had. And then, of course, the black singlet strap one, the most iconic Andre the Giant, had that one. But I didn't even know this existed, which is basically the black strap one, just a little bit different here. But definitely it is Andre. It looks like Andre. Some reuse over there. It's like they mashed those 2 together in some ways. But this one, just because I didn't know it existed, and I don't remember Andre the Giant with the short hair. It was a very brief moment in time between that afro and him going to the singlet. He had some of this there. So it just doesn't resonate like the long hair or the singlet strap does. It's just kind of caught in between. And couple that with not having this or knowing about this as a kid, just didn't do a lot for me. And I gotta say, I love LJNs because of the nostalgia aspect, but this one just couldn't climb up for me. But it's still low. It is, though, coming in at number 5 in my 5 least favorite Andre the Giant figures of all time. Next up at number 4, we're gonna talk about a little Ultimate Edition. And it seems like Andre the Giant, his last few figures have been perceived Ultimate Editions, be it from Super 7 and Mattel. But for number 4, we're going to Super 7. We're going to the Super 7 Ultimate Edition, Andre the Giant Black Strap Edition. Now, they got a lot of reuse from these different Ultimate Editions over there at Super 7. And I try to convince myself and try to convince myself. I lay there and I try to say, okay, how can I spin this that I like this? And I really can't get to the answer. There's not a whole lot to like about this, honestly, here. I like what they tried. I like what they attempted to. Super 7 has some of my favorite toy lines. That new G.I. Joe line, absolutely everything I've been waiting my entire life for. I love the Turtles. I love the Thundercats. But the wrestling figures, we got to be honest, leaving a little bit to be desired. I hope if they're going to continue in the wrestling game, they could step it up a little bit more, especially in the head sculpts. But this Andre is interesting because these Super 7 Andre the Giant figures almost feel like they're an interpretation from, like, there's an Andre the Giant comic book out there. And it almost feels like they're trying to mimic the comic book. Like, this is Andre the Giant from the comic book, not the Andre the Giant in the real world. But they've never come out and said that. It's just me kind of deciphering it and putting a spin on it, I guess you will. But I just can't rally myself around these Andre the Giants. And of course, they're a little bit more expensive than your average figures, around $55. And you feel like you should get a little bit more for your Andre the Giant for $55. And like I said, I like what Super 7 does in a lot of things. The wrestling figures is just a lot to be desired. But we did have a Super 7 Ultimate on the top 10 best. So they weren't all terrible. But this one just really struggled. Obviously very plain Jane. Andre the Giant, we talked about him, how he's very plain Jane. I do like the singlet technology they kind of have going on here, but he just looks kind of like he's sitting in a barrel and he's getting ready to go over Niagara Falls. It's kind of how his body type feels to me. It almost feels like he's in a barrel, not necessarily in a singlet. And it's just a different one. I mean, he's got the iconic eyes going on, you know, that look, but it's just a little bit amiss. And that's just the way it's going to go with these Andre the Giants. An interesting one, of course, the most iconic version of Andre the Giant is black singlet. I always do say that. But this one just missed the mark for me, and that's why it comes in at number 4 in my top 5 list. We're at the halfway point of my top 5 worst Andre the Giant figures of all time list. You got your list together? Make sure you put it in the comments down below. But number 3 comes to us from a different line from these videos, one that we're only going to see a one and done of. We're going all the way to McFarlane Toys. We're going to McFarlane Toys Princess Bride Andre the Giant, or was his name Fezzik in the movie, I believe it was. Now, I gotta be honest, you guys know I have never seen the Princess Bride. Maybe one day, probably not, but Andre the Giant, of course, was in that. A lot of people know Andre the Giant. I've dated a lot of ladies over the years. Yes, I have, a lot of ladies, and they don't really follow wrestling. I don't think any of the girls I've ever dated in my life followed wrestling, but of course they knew who Andre the Giant was. But when they think of Andre the Giant, they think of Fezzik from The Princess Bride. So I feel sorry for all those ladies. I feel sorry they had to date me, and I feel sorry that they had to only know Andre from The Princess Bride. Maybe not. I don't know. But Fezzik never did anything for me since I never saw it. But when I see this Andre the Giant, you know what Kyle's brain thinks of? I think of watching cartoons and TV shows as a kid, and I think of that honeycomb commercial with Andre the Giant. And for some reason, I always think of him wearing this in that commercial. I need to go back and see it, but that's what this reminds me of. This is Andre the Giant looking for some honeycomb in a treehouse somewhere. But it's an interesting Andre the Giant, and I don't like the head sculpt on this one. That's part of the problem. Of course, I don't have nostalgia for the Princess Bride as well, but then you look at the scaling of this figure, as he is not in scale with the other figures, so that hurts him there. It's just not what I'm looking for an Andre the Giant, but you can make the case easily, well, it's not Andre the Giant, it's Fezzik, it's Princess Bride, why would you? I get it, but it's part of Andre the Giant. You think of Andre the Giant with this. I have this in my collection, of course. It's just not doing a whole lot for me. And you can find this fairly cheap if you are in the hunt for this. It is what it is, and I could see this being not on everybody's top 5, but it is on mine, and it's coming in at number 3. We're getting down to the end, the very end of this top 5 list here, and we're at the number 2 spot right now. And I gotta believe there's gonna be a lot of people that have my number 2 figure at the number 1 spot, and that's okay, because that's your list, and this is my list. But for number 2 for me, this is one of the most controversial Andre the Giant figures of all time, if not all time, from recent memory. What are we talking about? Once again, we're going to Super 7. We're going to their Ultimate Edition line. We're grabbing the yellow trunks Andre the Giant. I am not sure what's up with this. A lot of people say it looks like Jeff Garland, the dad from the Goldbergs, of course, Curb Your Enthusiasm as well. People think it looks like Homer Simpson. A lot of people just say it doesn't look like Andre the Giant at all. It is during his yellow trunks phase, I guess we'll call it WrestleMania 2. It just feels like a drunken Andre because, of course, he always comes with that beer can kind of stumbling around. He's got a crazy look on his face. Just not a ton of bells and whistles with this Andre the Giant. I think that hurts the figure as well. A lot of the stuff I talked about in the prior one that we talked about from Super 7 in this very video relates down to this one, but it's just not iconic at all compared to the black strap, so this one gets a little farther down the worst list. A lot of people had a lot of fun with this one, joking about it, picking on this figure, and I'm not going to say that wasn't right. I mean, it really, you reap what you sow, and this just wasn't Super 7's best effort, unfortunately, and I have to think when we do a top 10 worst figures of 2023, we'll probably see this Andre the Giant on that list, unfortunately. And a lot of people, I did around the same time, there was a WrestleMania basic of this Andre the Giant came out, and a lot of people said, I'd rather buy the $10 basic than the 55 Ultimate, so that's never a good day at the office, and we just need some more work on some of these wrestling figures from Super 7, like I did say, but I still had to put this on the list. There was no denying it was going to be number 2 for me, because the number 1 figure has broke my heart for so long. It had to be number 1. It's going to stay number 1, and it's time to talk about that one right now. All right, we've come to the number 1 spot, my number 1 least favorite Andre the Giant figure of all time. I want to see your list. Make sure you put it in the comments down below, and make sure you put it in order. That is the hard part. That is the fun part. And don't forget to subscribe to this very YouTube channel, as we got videos every single day. Yeah, you heard it right. 3 videos a day, and even more content for you on the Patreon, including early access to videos just like this one. But here we are at the number 1 spot, and there was no denying this one was going to be number 1 for me, and it stayed number 1. And there's probably very well could make a case, and maybe one day we'll do my top 10 favorite or my top 10 least favorite wrestling figures of all time, and I gotta think this guy will be on that list. He will be somewhere in that top 10, possibly number 1 on that list as well. What am I talking about? We're talking about an action figure that almost single-handedly ruined the greatest action figure line of all time. Debatable, of course, but we're going to Jakks Classic Superstars Series 1, Andre the Giant. Man, oh man. Now, when the Classic Superstar figures came out, it was an absolute game changer. Some of the things that longtime fans had been looking for. We wanted new Ultimate Warriors, Bret Harts. We wanted classic attires, classic moments, guys from yesteryear that weren't getting figures. We were so excited. We were so pumped. And then we saw Series 1. Oh my gosh, this Ultimate Warrior is amazing. Oh my gosh, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Oh, this Triple H is passable. Oh my gosh. And then you get to Andre the Giant. Oh my gosh, they got Andre the Giant. And then you see this load of absolute hot garbage right here as they messed up one of the easiest things, one of the most iconic things ever in wrestling history was Andre's one-strap singlet. It doesn't get much more plain Jane than that, but Jakks messed it up right off the get-go. And not only once, 3 times. They released it as a GameStop exclusive. They released it in a 3-pack, a Walmart exclusive. They kept messing this up, and that was Jakks going back to the well, getting the most out of their molds, using that one Big Show body, putting that back out. Oh, we'll just slap Andre head on there, and it's Andre. No, it was a slap in the face to collectors. It was a huge, huge misstep in Series 1. Luckily, they fixed this multiple times throughout the span of the Classics line, but talk about a rough start. I almost think, I kind of wonder, we'll play the what-if game a little bit. If they wouldn't have had Ultimate Warrior in Series 1, and they gave me somebody I didn't care about in Series 1, and this Andre was still in Series 1, I might have said, you know what, this Classics line is just the hottest of hot garbage. What is this thing? It was just a bunch of terrible stuff, nobody I liked, but the power of the Warrior compelled me to stick around. I'm glad I did, because the Classic Superstars line is a very iconic line, a very nostalgic line, and one of my favorite lines, if not my favorite wrestling line of all time. So I was very excited to have that entire line, and who knows what could have happened if they could have messed it up with another one, and that Warrior wouldn't have saved it for me personally. But man, they screwed the pooch on this Andre. Just the hottest of hot garbage. Just embarrassingly bad. And like I said, I'm lucky that they fixed their mistakes later on multiple ways. We got a better Andre. We talked about that Andre in my top 10 favorites. But man, no doubt in my mind, starting this video, finishing the video, number 1 least favorite Andre the Giant figures of all time is the Jakks Classic Superstars Series 1. Andre the Giant. So there's my top 5. Remember to put your top 5 in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget about the Patreon. And don't forget about Pro Wrestling Tees, your best way to support the channel and all of its content. And don't forget to hit me up, follow along on social media. SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. So for the worst Andre the Giant figures of all time, I am Kyle. See you guys all real soon.